we'll start talking about this old review about positioning and how we need to change our idea of, you know, how we should be defending or attacking to take ground and alleviate pressure. This one I'm only going to talk about Junkertown, mainly because it was so obvious looking back on it, like the difference between how they attacked and how we attacked, and how we defended, how they defended, and how in this meta small things like positioning can really change how you win and lose. First thing to mention, how quickly they set up their barrier, considering their barrier positioning and their cart positioning. They play totally more dynamically than we do. Obviously, we're giving them more space because we're trying to set up this LOS with the Widow. But the main thing to consider here is that as an Orisa moving forward, putting the shield way forward with the Sigma to support, just in case we push, and then having that being protected, and the only one behind can be the Moira, because Moira can move around. And the difference between that and what we end up doing is pretty obvious when we get to that spot. So we're trying to hold them here as much as we can, because we know that as soon as they get into this position here, they've got no more cover. It starts becoming just this huge open area. So it'll benefit our long range heaps more. As Hanzo, you can be pressuring top right hand side or top left hand side, or even all the way left hand side, just to cheekily appear, shoot someone and then disappear. Usually abusing the fact that you don't have to be here at all. I think the pressure from the two tanks, the two healers, and the long range sniper is enough to stop people from moving through choke easily. And even just being like maybe right here is enough to give you a sight line and be safe, and using this wall for cover will definitely give you the chance to kill people sitting here. We like to push forward a little bit, which is okay. Because once they get to this point here, there's not much more ground they can take. If they decide to throw shield over here and move forward and try to push through the tank line, they can't, because then they'll leave it open on the left-hand side, and as Widow can move to the right-hand side and Hanzo to the left. They'll be torn apart, so they have to sit in this choke and wait for a pick. They don't really have much of a choice. They got one pick on us, we res, they lose two people, because this meta seems to favour the get a pick, then move strat and take ground as slow as you can, and whenever the enemy team gives you it. Same thing again. They're hoping to pull the front line out. We get a pick, so they double up with an ult. Two of them die. They think they can res and make it work again. They give up. Really, we just want our goal in defending this point is to keep them in this corner and keeping them having to push this payload as much as they can, without being able to move anywhere else. They've figured out that they need to move high ground. Obviously, Fire is pretty grounded and can't deal with Widow. Sigma ult was their opening, but because of Dragon, they weren't able to push. They tried to push on their own Dragon to split our Sigma from them, so that gave them the room in order to move forward. In general, this team pushed this on every Hanzo ult they had to just use it as a split push scenario. Obviously, we lost our main tank, and that was a problem, but not unrecoverable. Definitely the Sigma playing too far forward was a problem here, position-wise. If Sigma was playing here, then it might have been recoverable, as most of our damage and healing is still there, and we've got a side flank that can hide. Sigma playing out and about aggressively isn't going to win any fights. Getting solo fire ulted doesn't help either.
You're welcome.
Alright, so our first mistake on defending this point is how we set up for it. You notice at this point we're down Hanzo, but we can still set up somewhere that isn't just this high ground position. Although high ground position here is fantastic. When there's only 5 of us, sure, we're all scared of being staggered, but I think a safe spot to be setting up is here. Denying this flank high ground route from the enemy team is pretty crucial in defending this spot, and making use of this high ground zone, as there's 3 different regions here that overlook the main path of the payload that they have to take in order to move the payload through. If even only one healer is on the payload, and you stand up here as Reaper or something and just wait for them to push through, you can just jump down and get value from picking off one healer and then teleport away. Bloody holding here as Sigma and staying here, even though that's not what we did, would be fantastic. Just chuck a shield up, sit right here, and just nuke them as they move through. You don't have to stay there. You can just drop it, move back, and then move forward again. If Hanzo decides to climb up the wall, just hit him with a rock. Really not much they can do about it. And then we can move more forward as well and create more pressure by moving up to this point, creating more flanks and angles. And on top of that, we could have another pressure point up here. But instead, all we've got is this far back spot, which lets them push all the way through this zone for free. And there's nothing really they had to do to get through that. And they could move on an angle that we let them take. At this point, we still haven't been able to do anything, and now they're in a prime position where they're underneath the bridge, where they're safe, and they can pull people down if they need to. They've got a flanker on the side distracting. They've got some pretty good potential threats. Pulling off 3 of us and then responding with an ult, which is good. So they can't immediately deal with everyone. We still lose our main tank though. And our high ground pressure's pretty much gone now. Ultimately, the fight was over before the payload even got through because of the amount of room we gave them, the amount of ability they had to take us down before anything even could be done. You'll see when they're defending on the next push and we're attacking how much more they made us struggle to try to get through, because they had a much more dynamic play style of stopping the payload more and being more of a threat early on this push. This death at the end that staggered was probably not for the best, as that creates a problem for our next defense that we should be pushing further back for. Big thing for this defense that we did is our barrier management. I talked to Cheese about this one. Was ultimately up to how close we were when we decided to push with Bongo. In general, we tend to start our fights earlier than we should, because they're always too far away before anything can happen. If you see the distance between the two teams and this next fight, and you'll see what I mean. With having said that, with Lucio, that doesn't exist. But, you know, have a look at this point here when enemy team is right up to this barrier. Normally you'd take this aggressive barrier with Orisa by moving everyone in front, but because of the positioning of everyone, we're unable to be anywhere near this aggressive push at all. Maybe either because we took this fight too early or because nobody was planned in the right spot for that encounter. I don't know. This high ground position from Hanzo is fantastic, although I'm pretty sure you end up jumping down. So ultimately what they had to do to win this fight was to just put a barrier and cut off our front line pressure. There's nothing we can really do in that circumstance because of how forward we were. Yeah, so the flank's gone. Now we're all just sitting in the low ground area with no threatening presence at all. We ultimately just handed them our main tank, and then everyone jumped on the low ground where we could be shot rather than staying up on top, trying to get something out of it. Moving down underneath here is McCree and pushing anyone that comes forward, or even moving towards the cart and stopping it for more timer, because us moving backwards on the low ground, if they've got the pressure, they can push it if they wanted to. Hanzo could move up high ground, and which he will. Alright, next thing I want to talk about is the way the enemy team Orisa used their barrier management compared to ours. You'll see how they win this whole corner, these two corners, basically for free. So they leave their more on the payload. They take this corner, this next corner early with both tanks, and they just stay there because they know that they've got the left side secure with Hanzo high ground, so we can't push anywhere on this flank. They know that with all these barriers, it's going to be a hard time for us to push through two tanks from that far away. So they can safely set up here and take all of this ground with the payload, which is something we could definitely learn from, which leaves us no real movement to actually do anything. And then on top of that, our plan now is to suck Hanzo ult. And because of the difference of distance between the two teams, that's not going to be able to work. See the Halt coming out now. Suck comes in. They're slowed. Dragon comes out. They can move away from the dragon. So the timing between the Halt dragon ultimately comes down to, if they're close, let's say about our team to halfway through the dragon, maybe to this red barrier, or even closer, then Halt dragon works very, very effectively, especially if they're in a small room like down in here. But ultimately at that long range, the combo would have to be dragon comes in, then Halt comes in to suck people into the dragon, because of the difference in timing. Being able to avoid this dragon coming straight towards you would be pretty easy, I think. Especially considering they were slowed, and then the slow wore off. Then they walked away. They just got out of the dragon. Wasn't much of a problem for them. We're retaking space, moving forward, so that we're not so pressured. But because of that, they cut us in half with another dragon, which splits our team in half. Then the Halt comes in to suck people into the dragon. So definitely a lot to be learnt from this. The positioning on Hanzo definitely could be better off up here. Ultimately just finding the left staircase flank to be more effective at being threatening, and you can use this small gap here to be annoying. Because what you want to do as a flanking DPS player on Hanzo, McCree, Soldier, Widow, all those like long range hit scan or non-hit scan ones that one shot and look for headshots and things. If you take an angle where you're only seeing one enemy at a time, then you're basically 1v1ing someone. If you can safely do this, like in this angle here where I'm just seeing the Mercy can see me, then no one can shoot me because I can't see them. So obviously they can't see me. I know it's a weird way to think about it, but if you're a thin character and you're not a tank, then that's how it works. If you can see one person, they can see you, but no one else can. And even if you take this like right down to the corner and crouch, then only the top of your head should be visible to them. And for you, with the high ground position, you can just disappear when you've taken damage. So like you shoot them, maybe you almost kill them, and let's say your health drops below where you feel comfortable, you just move like that. Maybe you need healing, okay, well then you crouch. Okay, I need healing, and you're safe here, and your healers can see you. So that's something to consider with high ground positioning, is that you can just 1v1 all the targets you need without any pressure from anyone else, and that's the best part about it. And you can walk around even further and do the same strategy here, which is ultimately a fantastic flank that, especially Hanzo, you just charge an arrow, you wait, you be very, very patient, wait till someone makes a mistake in their movement, some sort of predictable movement like Mercy jumping in the air, or someone walking in a straight line, and then you shoot them. And if you get an insta-kill on that, then you might be able to kill another target or just leave. And you've done like heaps, and you're able to continue the fight even longer because you didn't die. Again, we're completely split because of that dragon. We open up with a high noon to stop them from pushing forward. They've got a flank on us. The flank ends and fails. We decide to push on the left flank, even though he's already dead. They pull out a high noon to create more pressure. I definitely want to see Sigma's E being used against high noon. Like standing in front. Being a presence. Being out of position like that is not good at all. Denying res. Ultimately, though, the fight's already lost with Sigma being gone. And I think we're missing Hanzo too. Yeah, we're missing Hanzo and Sigma. Because in this matter, really, it's up to one or two people dying to win the fight, lose the fight, especially one of the tanks. If one of the tanks goes, you should be pretty frightened that they're going to take all the position away from you. Not sure what I think about like trying to die on this point. It did buy a lot of time though. They didn't realize how to deal with it. Again, moving this way with Hanzo, very predictable. Think about it this way, from like the enemy team's perspective, they're cleaning up kills. If you walk between this doorway and this doorway and this doorway and this doorway, their main focus from their perspective is the two spawns. That's what they can see. If they see an enemy health bar pop up here or pop up here, then you've just gained yourself all the aggro from the enemy team. If you want, think of it like a big red zone for a while. When the payload starts moving through, maybe just hide here for a sec, or maybe move quietly around and go and hide on the stairs for a sec. Because dying here means you won't be in the next two fights, because the last fight will be a stagger. In this circumstance, even if you're low health, I would just hide and pretend like you died already. Use the fact that the enemy team isn't, even if they are aware that you're still alive somewhere, that they have to send players to push you. Especially as Hanzo, considering you can put up a sonar and hide around a corner. Someone comes up the stairs, you just nuke them in the head. There's lots of things you can do as a cheeky flank Hanzo that would be better than just walking from here to there. Can I say? Ultimately, we've got no tank line pressure, so the payload's not moving anywhere. There's the tank line pressure now. Off tank starts to move onto the payload. Tank's making himself survivable, which is what we need in this fight. We've got a May as well, so the fight should be okay. Sigma falls, I think mainly because the barrier is too far forward, but it needs to be there because we're trying to stall the cart. We're denying Tracer flanks because Tracer can get a lot of value from being behind us, especially with bongos being up. We've cut off the sight line on the left side so that we can stay alive as long as we can. Bongo shield will hopefully buy us even more time and make it so that they're scared to pressure us with the Valkyrie and Intactors at the same time. And then a really good swap to Doom to try to just get some cheeky kills. This will usually net us a one fight. But in this circumstance, they've already used quite a bit. I think we even get the Mercy, but that's still not enough. Ultimately, I'm not sure how we would go, mainly because of Sigma's ult just being so strong in the last push and contesting any sort of payload. Yeah, so really the fight was lost here and then it was lost here. So there was only 2 actual fights in that last circumstance. And they both were lost due to positional problems. Alright, so we'll see the difference in how they defended and how they treated the defense that we could be learning from. So they decided to go for rear distraction, which we were pretty onto, I think. One thing to note is how much attention we pay to rear distraction tactics. If 4 people turn around and look at a Sombra behind us, if that happens in a crucial moment, maybe only Sigma's pointing forwards, we might leave ourselves really open to the enemy team. Just something to consider. This wall is fantastic. Just totally stops us from having to deal with any pressure as we move the payload through the more dangerous phase. They're all just sitting back because they can't do much because Sigma's out of position at the moment. Heaps of damage coming through. This is fantastic. Here we go. Here's the backline pressure from Sombra. Let's see how many people turn around. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So 4 people. So that's what, 60% of your team. My maths isn't great. Let's see. Yeah, that'll do. And there's basically most of our team looking behind us at this one guy. If in this scenario maybe we had all the enemy team moving a bit more forward, maybe they were standing on this bridge, maybe they were standing right here, then if you see it from this perspective, you can see what I'm talking about with Sigma being really far forward. He's the only one paying attention to the front, and you can quite clearly see from this angle that everyone's turning around and not paying any attention. So if I saw this, I would say to my team, WWW, let's go, let's go, let's go. Bloody Sigma's the only one here. He's a easy target. Hanzo would be pocketed and would take the high ground and just fucking shoot him from behind or something. Or maybe we'd move up with an Orisa shield really aggressively and just take him right there. Because the amount of protection Sigma would get in this position, considering how far away he is from everyone else, and where all the attention's being paid, yeah, The only thing I would say about this to improve this sort of scenario, main tanks should always be looking forwards, not backwards. If this was a different scenario, this might be a problem, but luckily, because the enemy team is down a lot of resources, I think this is not that bad. Same time as a flank as well, so yeah, bit close. A good team would probably push us for that mistake. So ultimately, we scare Sombra off. See the difference from what I was talking about before, how they took this spot here immediately. The payload was back there, but their Orisa shield was straight in here because they knew that the next point they needed to move up to was this. If we tried to take this spot like they did, look where they are, and they moved up with Sigma, they moved up with Hanzo. They know that if anyone gets near us and they try to put Orisa shield right in front of this Orisa shield, they'll move into your Orisa shield, put an Orisa shield down, and try to take over your main tank or try to stop you from taking any ground. So they're very aware of it for the where they're playing and everything like that. If they played around the back of the corner, then they couldn't have done it. They're very aware of their team and where they are and where they need to be, much more than we were. In general, we had a lot easier of a time to find high ground pressure because they decided to run Sombra. Because Sombra really isn't helpful to this meta. So lucky for us, I'd say. Normally I say, don't go in front of the shield, don't do this, don't do that. But I think as long as you're aware of where Hanzo's arrows are and you're able to be like, okay, you can't shoot me, and just be like ADing everywhere and avoiding Hanzo arrows, you might be able to get out of this. But number one, be aware of Hanzo arrows. Number two, be aware of Sigma's rock. If you're in front of the shield, obviously Mei has invulnerability, so she's probably the most capable of being in front of the shield than anyone else, but I still think this is very risky. You're very lucky that you didn't get rocked into the face and then Hanzo arrowed in the face or anything like that. That'll insta-kill you before you can freeze. There's the rock coming out. He's trying to punish you. They tried to halt you as well. So you ended up becoming a bait. I think you still ultimately... No, you didn't die. That's good. Playing it very riskily, though. I don't think that was necessary. In terms of the wall, they're in an awkward position because we've got Hanzo up in the high ground. And we've got this sort of side flank with Sigma. Yeah, I mean, they've chosen a bad spot to be in at the moment. The Sombra flank isn't doing them any justice here. So ultimately, I think we've got the advantage. They're just going for picks and trying to get ult from Sombra, and that's not going to really work in this comp. Alright, so they're all focusing Sigma. Sombra walks out in front of our whole team, and nothing's being done about it. Sigma ultimately walks way too far forward and dies by himself. Finally, Sombra is getting punished for being up there. Now the pressure's being pushed onto Hanzo because, well, they should be looking at Hanzo right now because everyone's behind a barrier. The only one that isn't right now is Hanzo on the high ground. So they're trying to halt Hanzo off high ground. We're in a bit of a problematic scenario because we don't have Sigma. We can't be dynamic in how we use our shield and how we move forward. We have to be really passive. Thankfully, that's okay, so we can pressure Sombra, and Sombra dies. they're down 2, so we're even. Well, not really. We're up. We wall off Orisa. Completely fantastic at splitting. Especially considering we've got view on the high ground for both the tanks and supports. So they're really having a lot of trouble with our flanking. This fight has just been a matter of Hanzo picks at the moment. Nothing really to be said here, we're just cleaning up. On this point, we chose well to just stay on the cart. There's no need to push barrier forward here. There's no ground that needs to be taken yet. We decide to do a Hanzo ult here. Whether or not we do an early or a late one, I'll let you know. See how they've started to set up already their next push and next defense. See, we haven't even pushed payload through yet, and they've already started fighting us. They've already set up high ground much earlier. The pressure, again, if you remember the way they played with Orisa, was they left payload to Moira or Lucio and then just moved right up to next corner with everyone else. So that, you know, we can immediately alleviate pressure from having to push payload slowly through there. Especially important considering what we're next about to do with the Hanzo ult into Suck. We probably do need Orisa to be closer for it to work properly. Alright, what does end up happening? One thing I'd like to see, because we are running Mei, is a sick Mei wall right here. Imagine a Mei wall cutting them in half here. They can't leave this high ground position unless they jump down in front of us, which really would be a fantastic thing to do. So they're making use of the side high ground position. Don't know why Hanzo's on the ground there. They're made aware that what we're doing is happening. The Mei wall was okay. I mean, like, it stopped some of the pressure from them, so they had to move. They couldn't shoot us from here anymore. But that caused a rotation, so they're starting to move. Here comes the Suck. Very well timed. Luckily, it split their Mercy, who was playing in the hallway for some reason, even though she should be anywhere else, maybe here, or maybe down here, or maybe back here. I don't know why the hallway is where she chose to be, but thankfully that caused us to get a kill. So they're all split. We're not in any position to push on this split. We're really far back because we're still pushing payload unnecessarily. We should really be in the fight, making use of the fact that they're split and that they don't have any positional spots now. So look at the ground. We have Hanzo out on his own is Sigma. Orisa and Sombra is Decloak, just standing next to Orisa. Moira's on the ground. Like, if we were further up and we took the corner like we did the Suck thing, then we could have actually moved on anyone that fell down here. And then maybe we could have even high ground walked up the wall with Hanzo and pushed anyone. It really would have been a different fight. But because we didn't do that, we get one kill, they come down, and then it's their fight again. So our advantage that we gained wasn't really acted on, and so we just passively tried to get kills and win, which is not going to work really. Luckily, it was fairly even. Their Orisa jumped in like a maniac, so they lost their main tank straight away. See, they've got the high ground pressure behind, which means that some of our resources have to be used turning around and dealing with a backwards threat as well as a forwards threat, even though there's only 2 people at the front and 1 person at the back. They're creating so much trouble for us to move through, which is buying them heaps of time. Getting ult from Sombra and also potential kills from Sigma. So Sombra's goal there wasn't even to get any kills, really. Now she's got this really fantastic high ground position. She almost dies, but she's got healing there now. And look, this payload position we've got it in now is exactly where we'd probably have it if we had already done that combo earlier. So that's the biggest difference. We got 2 team fights out of something we could have only gotten 1 out of. Starting to move under. They've got the high ground position advantage on us. Even though they're missing a player, that doesn't matter to them. They're still fighting. We're very split in where we're deciding to be. The frontline pressure's kind of there, but not there. Ultimately, we've got someone dealing with the above high ground pressure, someone in the middle getting altered. We've got someone avoiding the ult at the back, someone moving in at the front. It's very split in our team at the moment, and there'll be no focus fire for us. That Lucio ult's pretty pog, keeps us alive. May's extremely in now and has to be because of the Hanzo ult. There's not really much choice now that they're in. Orisa's just coming back now because of Sigma's ult holding him on the spot for a few seconds. Even through beat, he still died. At this point, they've all turned and looked at May, which is fantastic. That bought us. It stopped them from cleaning us up. Really, the team fight now is between 4 people and a Sombra, or 4 people and a May, or 5 people and a May. Really clutch play, because even though they just got a kill and they used 2 ults to do it, they can't make that advantage work because they're all going May, and no one's killing May. We're going Sombra because we've got that ability to focus fire Sombra now. May makes it out alive like a boss. And now we're able to come together as a team. Even though they just used 2 ults against us, we still are absolutely fine. With the one missing support, obviously. So we end up using Sigma ult May ult, which does work. I don't know whether or not you need all of those things at once. The way that it was used, though, I don't like. So we've got Sombra on the ult. Sombra and Hanzo both just fighting each other anyway. It doesn't really matter about that. This main fight is what we should be focusing on. So the tanks are being subdued by May ult. The supports and the DPS are being subdued by the Sigma ult. So in general, both of these ults are being used ineffectively. If you put them together, then it should definitely guarantee kills. I don't know why you wouldn't. Just using one and then pushing on it and then using another and pushing on it would be much more devastating than the way it's used here, where one person uses it over here for the tanks, which is great, don't get me wrong, but and then Sigma ult here, it's so little value for how much resources being spent. So currently 2 frozen tanks, 3 floating players. What do we do? Healers just help each other. The May just gets shot from a floating Hanzo. The two tanks are still alive. The Sigma is thinking that we should be inting into these targets here when he could just be, he could honestly just be chucking a shield on them, cutting them away from their team, and these two frozen tanks could be killed immediately. Because of how long it takes for our main damage to get down from the high ground and from our Orisa to try to move through the enemy Orisa's barrier. This is how long it's taken before we can start actually dealing damage to them. Hanzo is able to just ignore Sigma, because Sigma's not posing any threat to him really. So he's just able to start shooting at us to defend his team. And because he's got two healers behind him, he's going to survive that. Sigma just shields himself instead of shielding his team, or just pushing the shield onto them, or pressing E and standing right in front of Hanzo would it be even better, because then he can't do anything. Buying time is what he needs to be doing right now. Now he's just focused on kills, not on time, or trying to stop Hanzo from doing anything. Hanzo's still not paying him any attention, because he knows, okay, Sigma's not my priority. Shooting these supports or people moving in front of shields is my priority. So, and this Sigma is not giving me any resistance, so I'll just ignore him. We finally clean up, but barely. See how Orisa doesn't really die. We're split. We've got one person focusing the enemy Orisa, one person fighting rezzing Mercy. Enemy Sigma's dead. Mercy's dead. Now they start to realize that the Orisa should be one we're focusing. Now the Orisa's dead. Yeah, ultimately very poorly played by the... Then an E comes out from Sigma for no reason. Yeah, doesn't make much sense here. And even because of all of that, these two targets are still alive, still behind. And they can even get out for free if they want to, but they're still staying here fighting, see if they can get picks so that they can win the next fight. Halt comes in. We're playing passively so that we don't accidentally die. Now we're killing him because he moved into us. Next fight. How do they set up for next fight? They got Sombra. Sombra's on about 87%, so he wants to just walk into them, deal as much damage as he can. He did it very obviously, but he wanted to do it as soon as he could so that the next fight can happen ASAP. He's looking for targets to use any damage on. Oh, there we go. There's a Sigma right there. Rock comes out. Okay, I'm disappearing. See you later. He's 8% on ult. That's probably the next fight almost. Usually in the 90% ult mark, you pretty much got ult the next fight. We move up quickly with Hanzo to take up high ground position. The rest of the team is still very far away. Ultimately, pushing cart comes second when someone moves in front. Think about it like this. Your resource, your teammate, has moved in front of everyone else. If your teammate dies alone, then doesn't matter what value you got from having 3 people on cart pushing the cart, it's not going to net you as much gain as losing a teammate. So you need to be all together on the same page about positioning. This Orisa shield is where you should be. Much further up. Maybe, yeah, a bit different of a shield, obviously, but much further up is where you'd be able to find value from this. So again, Orisa's far too back, Sigma's far too forward, the off tank and main tank are far too split from each other. Mei could be moving up as well, but again, Sigma's just far too forward here. Orisa's far too passive here. Okay, May's moved up to support Sigma, which is good. Orisa should really be up right in front of Sigma. Alright, the shield comes out, but ultimately the positioning isn't there. The wall comes up to support, but because walls need a team behind them to push on, if you catch a target and you're able to catch him with a wall, sure, that's fantastic. So there's Orisa by himself. You're not going to get that kill because there's only two of you. So 2v1 is not that good. It's okay, but like it's not going to be able to win that Orisa kill, especially when she's golden. Really, the wall and coming up with the wall and making a kill happen is only going to work if you've got a team behind you. If you don't have a team behind you, the wall's kind of useless. Very lucky that the EMP didn't work because they would have been able to push in it, so their team was already moving forward. They're already prepared to come in with a fight. They had the main tank forward. They had the side tank forward. They were very prepared to immediately engage on the next fight. Luckily, they couldn't take any ground from us because we killed their only choice, so they start backing up.
My barrier is destroyed.
We destroy Sigma barrier. We use Dragon the same way they do. We split them in half. All of our team, look how close all of our team are now to their team. So if we try to do this Dragon strategy from much further away, like way back here, then it wouldn't have worked. But because we were right here, this worked fine. Positioning, yeah, very important. So we're able to push forward on this. So now we're all just collapsing around them. And this is how team fights are won. Not through just ulting and getting kills, but through being close to the enemy team in this team comp. Before inting them. Just cleaning up, cleaning up. Okay, remember what I said last time? The positioning of the shield and where they take. Last time they took this corner because they knew, okay, the next thing I need to do is be here. We could even be even further forward here. And they had one on payload. And that's what we do. We leave two on the payload, but Orisa goes back to the payload so that they can push for 3. That's not so bad. Sigma maintains his presence here. May is extremely forward here. So the distance between main tank and the payload and here is very dangerous. But as May, I think you can get away with that sometimes. Same with Hanzo. We've got the Lucio coming in to speed out if we need to. Okay, we got a cheeky kill onto Junkrat. Ultimately, though, that failed for me. Too risky. Didn't work out, either because of ice didn't work or something. I don't know. It's up to the player to use that high risk, high reward and see it through. If it fails, then that's what it is, high risk. But that's how it is. Okay, we use our own bongos. We're all very close to the enemy team, so this should be okay. However, Dragon comes in, splits us. Sigma walks in a weird way towards the Dragon and then away from the Dragon. Really, you need to be moving back with your team. Hanzo's split off. Main tank's split off. Main support is trying their best to heal. Lucio got caught up in the crossfire, so just got instantly annihilated. Sigma walked on a weird direction I don't know why he walked towards the enemy, but died anyway. And then we're all just getting cleaned up.
Elementary application.
Okay, so main thing, they're holding high ground positioning. They know with Hanzo and Junkrat that they can get cheeky picks before the fight's even started. They know exactly what their job is here, is to just catch people unawares and get any kills. Because if they get a kill here, then the next fight's going to take longer to happen. Punishing rotations with these two heroes is their primary goal, so that the next fight is just easy for their team. They're playing very close to the wall so that they can just hide, so they can just shoot their projectiles through the choke. This main area is so wide, you have to get hit by it. So putting up a Sigma shield is definitely what we needed to do, which is good. We're avoiding the projectiles so that we don't get killed. We decide to go under because Junkrat's on a high ground, so he's providing less of a threat to us moving through the bottom passage. Hanzo's trying to get cheeky picks. Moira's on the flank trying to get a cheeky pick or scouting, I'm not sure. And in general, Junkrat's probably able to just move down anyway. Losing Lucio's speed to speed us through that choke would not get us any value because of how close their team is. But having said that, considering that Moira is over here, it probably would have worked for us if we could kill them quickly. But, you know, we'll see. So we're dawdling in the main choke. Dawdling, and there's Junkrat. Now suddenly, Bongo's out. Junkrat's shooting us in a tiny choke. Yeah, that's usually death. At this point, I would be... yeah, wall could work. At this point, I'd be using E as Sigma, moving back, just retreating. You know Bongo's out. Bongo's with Junkrat mines is like instant kills everywhere. We've got their own Lucio, so their cleanup on this is really fast. Hulk comes in to try to slow them, but not enough. They just speed into us. Halt, pull us back. So they played that very well. That strategy on that fight won them Junkrat ult. Okay, so we decide not to take room again because we know that's bad. We flush out high ground, Hanzo v Hanzo, both looking for each other, being silly. We move through. We move up. Tanks are in a good position now. They just decide to use one ult at a time. They use Halt Sigma ult. Doesn't net them anything because we've got abilities that counter it. We lose sheer ult for some reason. Doesn't really make much
Lucio was
sense.
stuck in the ult. Or Lucio was almost in the ult. One of the two.
Nah, Lucio wasn't in the ult.
Well, either way, it was a ult to counter the Sigma ult. Because I'm pretty sure she wasn't sure if anyone was caught in it.
Yeah, no, I see that. But ultimately, from that perspective of Lucio, you should be able to see what the damage is. Yeah, there's no reason to ult there.
Yeah, oh well.
Bloody, either way, we're coming in fine. We've got Lucio ult extending our time alive, so we should be pushing aggressively. Hanzos haven't found each other yet, which is pretty hilarious. Dragons cut off 2 players from their team. Junkrat Tire comes out. Wall comes out for Orisa. Still no pressure on Orisa. Everyone seems distracted. I think they're all looking for Tyre. Tyre catches 2. Fight's over. There's a few chances for kills and advantageous positions, but nothing was pushed on, so no kills were made. Alright, so we push around again. We decide to wall up. Few of us move up, few of us are lagging behind. We've got this really nice high ground pressure up here. The only way that this high ground pressure is going to work is if we get a kill from the high ground with Hanzo, because long range, or from, I guess, May's ice. But it's going to be very difficult to actually get any kills from up here with any of the other heroes. So we move down. Sigma stays up. Main tank is down on the ground. Could be pushed on, but because of their positioning, they can't do anything about it yet. We decide the Sigma ult. Catches quite a few of them, but unfortunately doesn't catch anyone because they've got a Lucio, and Lucio just speeds them out. Or so I would say. I think a few of them got out that should have been hit. This point, May's high ground usefulness is ended. I'll definitely wall off left side because all their damage is sitting just bottom left for some reason. And the tank line is just cut off from everyone. If we didn't realize that, we should have. With this 2-2 meta, it's really important for us to realize that when you see two damage dealers in one spot, they have no more damage dealers anywhere else in the game. If you see 2 tanks in one spot, they've got no more tanks anywhere else in the game. If you see 2 healers in one spot, no more healers anywhere else in the game. So if you can cut them, if you see 2 of them and you've got a chance to cut them off, do so, definitely. You've just almost won the fight, and tell everyone about it. Just be like, they have no healing right now. They're all cut off. They have no tanks. Cut off the tanks. There's only 2 tanks there. Okay, we've cut off the tanks. I don't know if Sigma's noticed that he's done that, but he has. Junkrat comes flying at us for some reason. Maybe to just be cheeky and get a very cheeky kill. They use Lucio up, very aware that they're in trouble, and they Hanzo to cut. Sigma's trapped, I believe. Yeah, Sigma's pretty much dead here. May's very far forward, so we'll eventually move into the dragon and die. And the fight is lost over those 2. There's no way you can win with these current heroes unless Hanzo can kill all 6 players somehow. We reset fairly quick, it's about 10 seconds. It's not too bad. We get bongos out of it. They do the same thing again. These guys are just... They know that they can do it without getting any or much punishment, so they might as well do it.
30 seconds remaining.
Hanzo climbs, gets shot, gets concussion blasted. Rip. Hanzo feels brave on the enemy team because he knows they've already one down. They might as well push and get another one down. Good use of ice so that you don't get picked on the last fight and be down 2 damage dealers. Unfortunately now Hanzo's very aware that there's no one to threaten him on high ground anymore, so he just stays up here. With all the care in the world, Sigma should be the one that should be dealing with that, chucking a shield up there and making sure he can't pressure our back line. Ultimately, his positioning gets pushed back because of Moira Orb. May ult comes out. they all speed out. No one gets frozen. Orissa's cut off. We could push Orissa. May is too far forward without the healing
10 seconds.
or shields. Goes down. Now, both tanks, both supports. That's all we've got. Trying to just survive as long as we can. We survived actually quite a long time. They drop one of their DPS. We've got Lucio ult again, but 3 players ain't gonna cut it. Yeah.
Victory.
So the main thing I want to point out with this whole VOD review was the fact that, especially in this meta, there's a definite positional mistake thing that can be pushed on, and defense-wise, you should be taking the next fight quicker and using high ground to create instances of flanking and things much more effectively. To be closer when you create advantage, so like either you May wall someone or you Hanzo ult with the intention to cut them off, is that you need your team to be close enough to do something, or you need to be on board with your Lucio to speed boost your team in so that we can do something about it. Otherwise, you're just throwing your advantages away. And then the last thing I want to say is that in this meta, these sort of things have to be considered, but if the next meta happens, it could be completely different, and none of this that I'm talking about will matter. So just take it with a grain of salt. Learn from this meta. Maybe the next meta will have some sort of element in it that's exactly the same. I don't know. I hope not. And yeah, that'll be it.